Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far, with the 4th major in New York beginning tomorrow. New York subliners themselves, of course, are going to have to make a massive run in front of their home crowd if they want to make it to the World Championship. But with the question still being raised, will HyDra actually be able to play this weekend? Clayster could well be subbing into this team for this weekend. Will they require his services? And if they do, what are their actual chances? Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Really upset the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Plenty to discuss today. First of all, of course, actually to mention with this New York event, it's the first time in a very long time that there's actually been a New York event, right? I think a lot of the pro players, even some of the OGs, have never even been to a New Yorker event. So it's a cool thing in the first place. Of course, there was the New York Subliners home series in the Modern Warfare era, which was actually won by the Subliners themselves with a rather different roster to what they have today. I think it was actually Temp was on that team. It was what Accuracy, Attach, Zuma, Temp, and Mac, I'm pretty sure was the team of 5 maybe at the time that they won the last New York Subliners Open series, which is eventually happening again, this time in person, thankfully. And as Slasher says, happy we're finally getting an event in New York, somehow never been. Excited for this weekend. So obviously all the teams are rocking up, they're going to try and do their best. World Championship qualification is most certainly on the line, but of course someone wants to win the entire thing as well. Pretty much every team, if they aim to win, then they should be able to get to the World Championship, unless of course you're Paris Legion, where even winning achieves absolutely nothing, unfortunately for them. So yes, Temp says final event of the season, because even if they win it, they don't qualify for the World Championship. Unfortunate scenes, but I mean, yeah, no surprises at that point. Wanted to mention capture the flag real quick. We did talk about it yesterday, but one thing I didn't really talk about with CTF being noticed yesterday was that, of course, control has not been noticed. Now, in this game here in Vanguard, it did take quite some time for control actually to be added. It was added like so late into the game that we didn't even know if there was going to be a third mode. Crimsix said that they were going to try and make them play Warzone for the third mode or something. I'm sure it was just joking around, but still, that was the talking point earlier on this year, because we didn't even have a third mode. I'm pretty sure some of the early challenges tourneys, they were playing like, 3 hardpoints, 2 searches or something. Pretty tragic scenes. So like, well, control of course was eventually added, and for good reason really, into this title. But still, who knows what's going to happen in Modern Warfare 2? Is control going to be in the game? Because it wasn't in Modern Warfare 1. So if they don't add it, then what are the options for the third game mode, right? Demolition, capture the flag, domination, God forbid. So like, yeah, we'll have to see how it goes. But yeah, control might not be in the new title, which wouldn't be a massive surprise at knowing Infinity Ward and how they don't tend to like copying Treyarch's game modes if they can avoid it. Now, well, let's talk Rostermania, because pre-last chance qualifier on the Challenger side, this just goes to show how bad the Challenger's format is, and Doug has a few words to say on this we'll look at later today. But it's just incredible actually. So there's Rostermania going down all across the board now, because effectively the way this worked is the top 4 teams globally automatically qualify for the Challengers World Championships if they have the most pro points. And effectively what these teams might decide to do, and certainly some teams have in North America, is just build teams that will have enough pro points to qualify, regardless of whether that team is actually good enough or not, which just shows the qualification system is terrible. So basically what's happened here is that the 4 players with the most pro points outside of like Toronto Ultra Academy North America have decided to form a team together so that they can overtake one of the spots that currently a European team, Rokkr Academy, has, because a lot of the North American pros, understandably, are really annoyed about the fact that Rokkr Academy are currently automatically qualifying for the World Championship, that being the Spanish team, because they've done very well online in Europe, but have done effectively nothing on LAN, and therefore like they're really frustrated that a load of points that they've accrued online are going to get them the champs, despite the fact that there's so many LAN teams better than Rokkr Academy at the present time. So effectively to spite them to a degree, but also to qualify themselves, Classic, Mohawk, Exceed, and Brack have formed a team, effectively some of the guys with the most pro points outside of Toronto Academy North America, and therefore, as it currently stands, going to have more pro points than Rokkr Academy, right? So it's kind of inevitable, the way this format works, that teams are just going to form, even though this team doesn't really make, I mean, it makes a fair bit of sense, but I'm not really sure where the SMG pressure is. It's a bit of a questionable squad to put together, but of course they do have enough pro points, and therefore they'll also qualify for champs, so you might as well do it. It just goes to show how bad the format is really, that this is even possible, and Capsule of course gets kind of left out as a result of this. Anyone needs one for the LCQ, let me know. So Capsule now needs a new team, because yes, his team was pretty good that he just had, but now they've decided to get rid of him because the pro points aren't quite there for Capsule, because I guess he was in the Pro League for most of the time, so didn't quite get to pick up the same amount of Challenger pro points as some of these other guys have. So it's honestly an absolute mess. And even as Rael says from the Rokkr Academy, that thanks to Rokkr for everything, disappointed with the results, we have to move forward at LCQ in 2 weeks. So this is rather interesting, because it's actually possible still that if Rokkr Academy wanted to, they could drop one of their players and bring on aBeZy, who of course isn't Spanish, he's a French player. So like I'm not really sure if communication would even work on that front, but if they wanted to, they could get rid of one of their players and bring in aBeZy, and that would give them enough pro points to re-overtake this new team of Classic and Co. So like if they really wanted to kind of spite those lads, they could then make the change for aBeZy and then automatically have enough qualification points. So they've got to wonder about that, right? Because either they have to win the last chance qualifier, and probably they're relatively confident in doing that online anyway, and becoming the final team from Europe that can qualify, or their choice is pick up aBeZy and guarantee qualification for the World Championship with arguably a worse team. So it's an absolute mess. And this is kind of, Crone goes on to say, like, X is kind of laughing about the state of challenges, and then Crone's like, well, look, if aBeZy joins Rokkr, then takes the spot back for the full challenges experience. So crazy scenes, there's no doubt about it. And that's the thing, if they drop Sucri and pick up aBeZy or win the EU LCQ, then they will still qualify, right? And that's the annoying thing about this, right? And Doug's been talking about it as well, right? That, of course, the 4 teams auto qualify, then 1 team qualifies per region, the European LCQ, the North American LCQ, which is coming up soon. We believe there will be 32 teams allowed at the North American LCQ, so pretty much all the top teams will be there, but Capsule is going to look for some players, and he might actually join Clayster's team, because we'll see Clay in a second right here is actually looking for 1 more player. So myself, Clayster, Venom need 1, because I think maybe, was it Bragg that was on this team, or there was 1 player on this team that I think left due to the whole Rostermania shenanigans that's going on. So it's challenges in a nutshell, but fundamentally it's caused by the format the CDL have proposed, where it's effectively incentivizing players to sketch on teams that might be better, just so that they can form a team with enough pro points they can actually qualify to the World Championship through their format, which obviously isn't particularly good, because let's say in Europe, we talked about it, right, that the European teams, Ultra Academy Europe, Rokkr Academy, teams like that, like they get a lot of points because the teams in Europe tend to stick together longer, therefore they can accrue more points, because effectively there's less competition in the European side as there is in North America, and therefore the European teams generally will get more points over the course of the season. So then effectively doing it a level playing field across the regions for challenges just obviously wasn't a particularly intelligent idea. But speaking of Clayster, of course, we've got to talk about what he's been up to, because he mentioned a little bit ago that the team are forcing him to go along to the New York events just in case they need an emergency substitute player. So he was just in Boston, I believe he's still around about the Boston area at the present time, to, of course, after the Boston event last weekend, and now he's going to go to New York to support the team at the actual New York Subliners event, which of course isn't ideal for their kind of Clayster's last chance qualifier hopes, because maybe practice won't be so easy over the coming days, and of course a very important time for all the teams trying to qualify through the LCQ. But of course, yes, all the New York Subliners guys are there. My understanding is that HyDra is successfully in New York. Like, despite having a positive test, he made it there some way or another, but still, I don't really think he's hanging with the team right now, and there is of course a massive concern as to whether, if he doesn't test negative in time, whether he'll actually be able to play, because I'm not really sure what the rules are nowadays, but certainly the rules were last season that if you still had a positive test, then you wouldn't be able to play, right? It was the same thing actually with Scump and Envoy when they tested positive, like last year before the World Championship. They were like, okay, we can't even fly out, right? And then they tested negative the day of and were able to go. But that's the concern with HyDra right here, is that if he doesn't test negative in time when he's actually at the venue, then whether he'll actually be able to play. And the thing is, even if he can play on Friday, Saturday, Sunday or whatever, if he can't play on Thursday in a massively important game against Rokkr, they need to win that, not just to secure that Rokkr don't get the free 20 points of getting top 6, but also that they need to get top 6 to make the good winners bracket run. Obviously a critical series for New York to win, and if they don't have their full strength team, it's going to be a challenging time. Yeah, Crim's out there, he's ready to go. And this also came up from Gersh, right? Kismet, I don't know what he's playing at right here, but I mean, we see Paul X, we see Kismet, like Gersh is here, Crim is obviously there, but yeah, no HyDra to be seen at the present time, and that's because, like, he got, a positive test a couple of days ago. Now, I believe he's out there in New York, but as Clayster says, new flexing at SMG and challenges would come in handy. So Clayster does love to tweet stuff like this and, bait about stuff on the timeline, and we'll see kind of an indication of that here in a second. But this isn't out of the realms of possibility, right? If HyDra can't play, as I'm pretty sure if he still has a positive test on Thursday, I don't know if he can play, right? I'm not really sure what the rules are. Like, if it's a certain amount of days after you first got symptoms, then maybe you're okay, even if, there's still positive tests coming up. I'm not really sure exactly what they're going to do at this New York event, because I know that New York did used to be kind of strict on these kind of restrictions. I'm not sure if that's the case anymore. I'm sure you guys can let me know in the comment section below, or what the event itself is actually planning to do. But let's say HyDra can't play, because I'm pretty sure he tested positive. We can look at the tweet here, actually. This is a few days ago. This is on the 9th, right? So, more than likely, at least based on kind of what a lot of people have experienced, you can still test positive for maybe 10 or so days after you first test positive, even if you feel fine. So there's a reasonable possibility that come Thursday, come tomorrow, he's still testing positive at the venue, and therefore will he be able to play? I'm not really sure what exactly they're going to do about this. But if he can't play, then what exactly did New York decide to do? Because they're going to need a player to fill that, dominant SMG role that HyDra currently does. And even when he was unwell, of course, at the weekend up against the Los Angeles Thieves in that series that they played, he was still probably the best player on their team. So the thing is, Clayster, if he was to come into this squad as pretty much the only substitute, there would potentially be other options, right? I don't know if New York would be able to get another challenger SMG player in time, or whether the rules are whether the rosters are officially locked, because no one really seems to know whether the rosters are actually locked or not. So they could potentially, if there was a challenger player that lived near New York, pick him up as an SMG, bring him into the squad and see how it would go. Because bringing Clay back, I mean, look, Crim and Clay again, I'm not really sure if that's going to work out right. It obviously was tragic at the start of the season. Would be hilarious in a way if Crim and Clay have to come back together to try qualify for the World Championship. And even if that was the case, I highly doubt that Clayster would be the one on the SMG run. Like, surely you're not going to put Clay on the SMG. If you had to do this, you'd put either, I mean, I guess Paul X or Crimsix, one of those two would be on that kind of like Slayer SMG role, trying to fill up HyDra's position, right? And there's no way you're putting Clay on the SMG. So for a few reasons, I'm not sure I fully buy Clayster's tweet here, but I do think that the possibility is actually a real one that they might not be able to play with HyDra this upcoming weekend. So obviously a massive deal for them if they can't, because like I think a lot of people have done their bracket predictions based on exactly what might happen if they do have their full strength team. They should be favourites against Rokkr, should be favourites against Boston. But this just goes to show really like the adversity that they are currently facing is just immense, right? Because the New York Islanders roster, not only are they being sabotaged by like all the good teams falling off and giving free victories to the lower down teams, right? New York went 4-1, did practically everything they needed to do, but still barely gained any ground at all on World Championship qualification because the teams around them, Minnesota, Florida, Los Angeles, Guerrillas, all picked up remarkable victories against teams that theoretically they shouldn't have beat. But of course, still, they go to the major, they'll play Minnesota round 1. If they beat them, they probably play Boston or potentially the Florida Mutineers in the second round. If they win both these series, they're top 3 with a very good chance to make it, right? But I mean, just thinking about this, because they've obviously got to do their preparation, they've got to do their practice, get ready to go. And if they're not even sure they're playing with HyDra and they can't even like practice with him in person, that's going to put their kind of preparation back even further than it would otherwise be, and is certainly for other teams, right? So that's the thing with this team, it's really tough. He does go on to say kind of that it drops the fishing pole emoji, effectively saying he's kind of baiting around here, but like still, it's not out of the realms of possibility that this has to happen, whether Clay is actually the guy to step in. But I mean, look, maybe he's baiting about running an SMG, but he might not be baiting about actually needing to step into the lineup if it is at all required. So definitely tweet your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Clay still in Boston until tomorrow for now, but of course I suppose until tomorrow, said yesterday, that meaning today, he's going to be there in New York in case the team needs him, right? I'm not exactly sure what they can do even, because at the Valorant Masters or whatever it was, like if one player has a positive test, they don't have to play on the stage, they can play behind the stage in like an own isolated room, effectively they can still play the match with their team and they play on the same server, because LAN isn't really LAN anymore. Like you play on the setups, but you still play on like an online server or whatever, I'm pretty sure is how it works. So theoretically, they could have a setup behind the stage where HyDra can still play the match with his team, but isn't actually on the stage kind of isolating still from the rest of his squad, but can still actually play the game. It's like in that official setting. So that would be another option as well. We'll see what the CDL can come up with on that front, if that's at all possible, or if they prepared for this kind of eventuality, which of course realistically is not a massive surprise. So very much enjoy your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below, or is it Zoomer's time to sub into this team instead? Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new as always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.